Hi, everyone. Welcome back to our third and final segment of the day. Um, it's going to be a spicy one because we are talking about F1.
Woo!
Um, I'm not going to show the highlights of this one because I want to be able to one post this places and two just like have conversation and then also talk about like fantasy and stuff. But I went back, I watched the race when it was live and tweeted some thoughts. So if you follow me on Twitter, you would have seen that. Um, but I also went back and watched the highlights and took notes. And I also sent the highlights to Emu so she watched
Mm-hmm.
too.
I did.
Um,
I'm prepared for once.
it was wild. And it was like they didn't even show like all the things that people were like upset about in the highlights.
Yeah.
So it just from that it kind of looked like it was like, oh, this happened. And then it was like, yay, that's it, but that's not how it happened. So the first thing I think, and I think we need like a change.org petition to make sure this never happens again, at least not for the rest of the year, is former race director Michael Massey was in the paddock this weekend and just all this crazy shit started happening. Like, I was like, honestly, who do we need to call to get down there and just like sage the energy out of there because he cannot be around because in like some of the worst calls that we've ever seen in that sport happened under him.
Yeah.
So his sheer presence was too much. And I don't even know why he was back there. Mm. It's not like the fans or the teams have like a great relationship with him after his stint as race director. So, mm. um, so kind of just starting in on the race, lap one, Charles Leclerc was just like, I think I'm going to be done for the day and had his spin out, which was crazy to me. Like, yeah, Ferrari's having some struggles, but they really only seem to be happening to him.
Just casual struggles.
Just casual, big time struggle. It a little bit like I wonder like what he did in like a previous life to piss off the gods at Ferrari, but things are not going his way, and things seem to be more fine for Carlos Sainz, who's his teammate.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
just like, I'm just driving. No one look at me. If they
No,
don't see me,
do
my
not
car won't crash. It's
perceive.
totally fine. Do not perceive. Yeah, so that was kind of the first thing that set it off. And then I think it was lap seven was when Alex Albon had his crash and it put gravel everywhere. And that, was kind of like a thing in itself because you're like, oh crap, you gotta like get the safety car and then, they gotta clean it up. But it was an interesting time because Toto Wolff and Mercedes decided at that point to split strategy and they
Yeah.
brought in George Russell to pit, which totally makes sense because a lot of times teams will absolutely do that. They'll run two strategies with their two different cars.
Yeah.
And so everyone's like, cool, great. And then the next lap, the red flag came out because F1 doesn't know how to do a cleanup without bringing out a red flag, and it's completely pointless. And I don't understand why they do that. Like, it's like, they always, even to this day, they're like, oh, pinnacle of motorsports.
Yeah. Yep.
Untrue. There should not be that much incompetence in cleaning up. Like, you can get the sweepers out there and clean up a mess without having to red flag the whole race. And even if they do want to pull in the cars,
Mm-hmm.
the thing is, it's like a 5 to 10 minute cleanup every time. But the
Mm-hmm.
drivers get out of their cars and take all their gear off.
Yeah.
No, if you're
Then
gonna
you
be
gotta
there for
put it all
10
back
minutes,
on.
like there's no point. Like IndyCar will just have the guys sit there. Like they'll bring over their team. They'll have like their fans, their water bottles, whatever they need. You just sit there for a few minutes, and then you only get out if it's going to be a long red flag.
Yeah.
there's so much extra. Like we don't need extra. Um, but the red flag coming out really screwed George Russell
Yeah.
because the red flag allowed everybody to come in and pit and get new tires. And that knocked him way down because he was running at the front.
Yeah.
That knocked him like all the way back. And at that point, everyone was like, wow, Toto really does hate George Russell, which is like a joke that people make, which is some people think is not a joke, but that was kind of the first step in the troubles for George.
Yeah.
And then lap 18, I tweeted something funny. I was like, wow, Toto told the world that he hated George by screwing up his strategy, and then his car agreed with him because it caught on fire. Flames were just shooting out the back.
Yeah.
Which is not great.
No.
You're not really ever wanting to see in an F1 car, or really any car, unless it's like a jet car or like a nitro car. Flames are not it. So he had fire shooting out the back of his car. And he obviously had to retire from the race. Because you don't really come back from that one. You're just like, oh yeah, no, but we'll keep going.
We'll keep going, it's not a big deal.
Totally fine. And then it was like, kind of like, okay, it was fine, whatever. It was so late, by the way. This race, because it was in Australia, it was like 10 o'clock when it started for me on the West Coast.
Yeah.
So I can't even imagine like being on the East Coast and trying to stay awake to watch it.
Yeah.
Like, but people did. Like, that's just brutal. But it was already very late. And then the red flag coming out, and then, that just like delays things. And then it was lap like, I think it was like 53 when Kevin Magnussen hit the wall and his tire flew off. And there was just debris everywhere because those ones really do. Like, tires coming off, especially if you hit like he did, it just makes everything do that. So there was just debris everywhere. And then that was a red flag. And then we finally had the restart on lap 57 for that. That was the restart where, like, because 58 lap race, like lap 57, everybody is like, okay, go, go, go. Like, they want to just get to the front.
Yeah.
So on this restart, Fernando Alonso had contact with Carlos Sainz and was spun around. And then I think what had happened was there was like jostling at the back. Mm-hmm. And it ended up with Pierre Gasly having a little bit of like a go off. And then when he came back on, he didn't check his mirrors.
Yeah.
He has them, but he did not use them. he didn't like look, like do anything. And this is one of the things that makes people say maybe we should have spotters in F1 because they don't. And Jenson Button, who was an F1 champion, raced in F1 for a lot of years, he's doing the Garage 56 NASCAR project at Le Mans. So he did a NASCAR race recently at COTA, and afterwards he was like, F1 needs spotters because that was nice. So Gasly doesn't look in his mirrors, and in his coming back on, he collects his teammate Esteban Ocon, and they go off running into the wall together, and then Alpine is just done. They were both running in the top 10, and he took them both out. They were like 6th and 9th or 6th and 10th or something, but they were both doing so good. And it was really unfortunate because at the time when that happened, in the booth, they were talking down on the pit wall to the team principal for Alpine, and he just had to watch all of that happen while he was on with them, and he was just like, oh
no,
great.
Not ideal.
Welcome back, Quackers. Emu's having a bad time. So we're talking about Esteban's crash.
It was sad.
It really,
they
that
were doing
whole race
so
was
well.
a shit show.
I could have gotten points.
You could have gotten
for one of my teams.
Good
well,
point.
For both of my teams, because he's on both teams, but
Yep, I have
He's
both of
doubled
them.
on it.
I have both of them on different teams, I think. But
Yeah.
oh boy, so that happened. Okay, I was honestly, I stay up. Like I will watch. I will stay up to watch a lot of endurance racing and I'll make it pretty far before I go to bed. I have never been more upset that I stayed up to watch something than this race. It honestly, I was so mad. I was like, why did I stay up for this? This is stupid. Like it was like 12:45 by the time they finished. And I was just like angrily muttering about incompetence with the FIA as I'm like brushing my teeth and getting into bed. So from that wreck, the red flag comes out. Again. Tell me if you can pick out a theme
how
here.
many official times? Do you have a tally? How many times?
There were 3.
It felt like more.
Did feel like more. So they pull everyone in, and this is like the most NASCAR I've seen an F1 race in a while with trying to like finish and like do all this stuff because in NASCAR you can do unlimited overtimes and green white checkers till the cows come home. Like it doesn't matter. But the FIA doesn't have any protocol for that. And it was like they've never because like we saw with IndyCar, they will finish under a yellow, which is fine. Sometimes that just be how it be.
Yeah.
There's something like not the wires are not connecting with the FIA on how to finish races in those circumstances. And it doesn't make sense to me. Like you have to look what's around you and think maybe we could take, some elements or do something to make something cohesive because although it might not happen often, you still need to have a protocol for when it does happen. Otherwise, you end up in the situation that we were in.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, that's insane to me. That is like an insane stat.
It is. That's a lot.
That's a lot. Because they throw the red flag like it's a yellow. Like, you're not using it right. So they took a very long time to decide what was going to happen and how they were going to finish it. So they decided they're going to do a rolling start just to like cross the line and like end the race. But at that point, you have to figure out what is actually your lineup. Like, where is everybody going to be? And so you think, and if you're going to assess and give any penalties for the contact and whatever happened in the wreck. So they decide that what happened between Gasly and Ocon is a racing incident, which, okay, whatever. What we actually didn't see, and I didn't see it until like the day after, or might have been like the next day, when I think it was Matt Gallagher pointed it out on Twitter. There was like, I think it was Nick DeVries and Logan Sargent on the restart. DeVries tried to send the Sargent into the fucking shadow realm and fucking mashed into him. And there was like no penalty for that.
Yeah.
No one even paid attention to that. Like there are screenshots, we can see it, we know what happened, but there was nothing for that. And then there's the contact that happened between Fernando and Carlos Sainz.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that is like a big one because if they kept the lineup the way it was, everyone was like, oh my God, is Hulkenberg going to potentially get his first podium ever? To which I was like, no, that's not going to happen. Like, it's like they're going to screw this up somehow.
Yeah.
And you know what? What they decided to do was put the order back to like the way it was like on the last lap, so like before the crash. So they essentially eliminate that whole entire lap.
Yeah.
which is a weird choice to me.
Yeah.
But what they do is they eliminate the lap and then they give Carlos Sainz a 5-second penalty for hitting Fernando, even though that lap no longer exists. How are you getting a shadow penalty for something that no longer exists?
Right.
Make it make sense.
It no makes
like,
sense.
like I'm sitting here, it's like almost fucking 1 a.m. and I'm like, oh my God, even in my exhausted state of mind where I'm mad, I'm not making those decisions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, it's midday or at least early morning wherever the FIA and their mobile centers are. How are you fucking up this bad?
Yeah.
Like, ugh. It just, it really just makes you question once again the integrity of the sport and like how they're governing it, because this is
Right.
not it.
Yeah.
Because that whole last fucking 2 laps, that you screwed so many, they screwed so many people.
Yeah.
And it's such a giant headache. Like, there's got to be some sort of something that has to happen over there, because this can't keep happening.
Yeah.
It's disgusting.
Right.
And this is the thing that's going to drive the fans away.
True.
It's always the governing bodies
Yep.
that do something stupid and the fans are like, peace.
Peace out.
So that was Australia. And then yesterday, ugh, it gets worse. This isn't even about Australia. This is just about F1 in general. So 15 years ago, we're going back in time, folks. 15 years ago, Felipe Massa, when he raced for Ferrari, he was in contention for a championship. And there was like this whole thing that happened. Now, I wasn't really actively watching F1 back then. I would see like a couple of races, and we had like whatever the current version of the F1 video game was for PlayStation. So I'd play that with my dad, and I would always be Fernando Alonso because he was my favorite. And now that he's like in his villain era and on a podium every week, I'm like, Fernando power. Like, roll it back. um there was a controversy back then with like, it was called like Crashgate or something, where there was teams, or a team that was accused of crashing to help their teammate and kind of like fuck with the points and that kind of thing. And at the end of the year, Felipe Massa felt that that had had an impact and taken away his championship, which at the time maybe that was like a fair thing to think, because if you go back to 2021, people think there are things, and there are things that, you know, Michael and the FIA did to impact the championship with Lewis and Max.
Yeah.
But, you know, this is 15 years ago. It happened, whatever. And then recently, fucking Bernie Ecclestone, man. He needs to stop giving interviews, and people need to stop asking him questions about Formula One and like seeking his opinion, because he continues to be the biggest detriment to this sport. He really was like doing some dumbass shit when he was in charge of Formula One.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, every time he opens his mouth, I'm like, why are you talking? Just go be 85 years old and with your wife that's 30 and having a baby. Like, go live your life. Yeah, that's a whole other thing. Yeah, it's like a young wife who got pregnant, and there's going to be like a 60-year age gap between this baby and its youngest sibling or something.
No.
Uh-huh.
That's chaotic.
Uh-huh. But chaos follows Bernie everywhere. It does. But he just continues to be such detriment, because he spoke on this Felipe Massa thing and said that back in 2008, they knew some stuff was going on.
Yeah.
And in order to kind of like protect the sport from like criticism or whatever, they kept everything kind of like to themselves and didn't like do a lot of stuff, which is not right. Probably shouldn't do that if you're in charge. you see things happening, you know. But I think back then really was the start of like the corruption and kind of like disaster that we've seen up to now
Yeah.
of F1. But the thing is they have so many rules within like the governing body. They have so many rules that it's like even if after the season Felipe was like, I want you to look into this right now, the second the trophy is handed over, the results are sealed for the year and they don't look into anything.
Yeah.
They can't do it.
Right.
So that's kind of like always been a thing. And now 15 years later, Bernie said that. And yesterday, Felipe Massa's like, all right, well, now we're going to legally look into it again. And I'm like, please no. It's been so long. And the chances of it actually ruling in his favor, because this one thing or these couple things that happened in Singapore or whatever it was, that wasn't the only thing that made him lose a championship that year. He was he did that to himself in Brazil. And someone said when they went to Silverstone that year, he was just like spinning like crazy. So he was doing stuff himself as well to kind of not like take himself out of contention, but he wasn't helping himself. So at this point, even if he could legally find a way to get them to look into it, I don't think it's worth it. It's not worth the time. It's not worth the money. It's not worth the mental capacity it takes. So it's kind of a thing where I'm just like, ugh, are you sure about this? Like, is this what you want your legacy to be? Like, everyone was kind of cool with you already. Maybe we don't do this.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things where, like, yeah, it sucks. And maybe that championship would have been yours, but it's kind of where we are. Like,
It is what it is.
it is what it is. Like, as bad as that sounds, like, it is what it is. Like, it's
Yep.
been a really long time. Like, you gotta let that go. Like, if it had happened like last week, I'd be like, yeah, okay. But 15 years.
Exactly.
The
It's a big
statute of limitations has run out on this issue, at least in my mind.
Yes.
And the one other just little thing before we talk about fantasy, and which I might, you know, do something is George Russell said this, and some other people I've seen some other people talking about it on Twitter. They're raising the questions of has Red Bull been sandbagging? Which at this point I put nothing past Christian Horner. But I think someone brought this up to Max and he was like, no, we're not doing that. What do you mean? But people were raising the question and being like, are they sandbagging because they think F1 will yell at them for being too fast? I don't know. Only they know the answer to that. But it is a thing that's being talked about. And I feel like with any questions that kind of arise about Red Bull after the whole cost cap thing, you have to maybe take things a little bit seriously.
Yeah.
Because I mean, they very well could be. They wouldn't, but they wouldn't be the first team to do so.
Right.
So it's not like the biggest deal, but it's a little bit like, are they? Like, I mean,
Makes you
there are
question
ways to like
everything.
work around it to like
Yeah.
be fast without being yelled at by the governing body, but
Yeah.
I guess we be seeing. I'm going to. Ooh, that's on it. I'm gonna log into fantasy real quick, and
Fancy.
we can talk about that.
Hell yeah.
It's gonna make me sign in. That's rude. Jeez.
Team.
Wait, where is my thing?
I will say,
Oh, it's okay.
They need to work on their site a bit because
Oh my god, it's so
literally
funky. I'm like,
every time I go in to like try to mess with it, it takes me like 5 minutes to try to figure out where I'm supposed to be or how to get there.
yeah.
It's
Like
not blatantly obvious.
it's a little bit better because I just struggled to do that just now. It's a little bit better on the because I have the F1 app. Had to download it for this.
Yeah.
And it's like a little bit better, but this website is not conducive to
No.
just everyday use.
Yeah.
So here's my thing. These are my three teams right now. Um, my question, so I'm gonna keep Ferrari. Obviously, I'm gonna keep Carlos. My question comes from this boy over here. Do I want to take a risk and maybe for like a week or something, a race just to like maybe get a little bit like away from him? Do I get rid of Charles Leclerc?
It's a spicy thought.
It's a spicy thought, and I don't know because I'm happy with kind of everything else, but I don't know. Is it worth it to like hope that he doesn't crash or hope that he like his car doesn't blow up? Like Ferrari is not exactly doing great at the moment, but
Yeah.
he's kind of the main player in that. I think I will at some point ask my, because I have a friend of mine who's supposed to be like helping me, like if I lose my mind on this, but all he's done so far is make fun of me for a choice I made week one.
Oh, well.
He did do that because I had posted like what I had done onto my Instagram story, and he's like, "Why'd you do that?" I was like, "Where was your ass to advise me?" I was like, "What are you doing?" But I don't know. I wonder if that might be a move. I'm considering it just for like a week or like just the next race to kind of like see if anything changes. But I also realized that I haven't been running any chips on any of mine.
Yeah.
And I know that Quackers did because I could see it and it gave him a lot of points. Like, let's go to our league. Like, look how many points he got.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what any of them do, but he's running autopilot.
I don't know what that means.
I don't know what that means either. Oh, that's not it. So I don't know. Maybe I have to, because going into after qualifying, there was only 2 points separating me and one of or Quackers and one of my teams. But I don't know. Let's see. I don't know what any of the chips do. Let's see if we can figure this out together. Luckily, we have enough time because we have 22 days until the next race.
True.
So we can
Mess around all we want.
yeah. Let's go here. Okay. What does this do? Only one can be. Ooh, there's an extra DRS. That's cool.
Can be selected
What does this
per
do?
race week. Top scoring driver will automatically get DRS boost 2 times score.
Overriding
The
manual
manual section.
selection.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
So it doesn't matter who you choose because if they're not the winner, it'll automatically put the winner as your 2 times of the ones you choose.
I like that.
That's not bad.
Let's see. What does this one do? Limitless. Unlimited transfers allowed with no cost cap restriction.
Resets after race week.
Ooh. That could be an interesting one. Wild card. Make unlimited changes to your team before the next Grand Prix. That's what I mean. Oh,
Oh,
we
that
need
seems
this,
like a
bitch.
good
We
one
need
for
this.
me.
No negative points are applied for the entire race week, including qualifying, sprint race, and final race. Oh,
That seems
why
really
am I not
good.
running that on every single one of my teams? I would keep Charles Leclerc if I had that. Jeez.
3 times
Extra DRS
points.
boost is good. What is final fix? Chip can be used after the qualifying race.
It
Cool,
doesn't
great.
even say what it is.
uh, this one though,
Yeah, that one's.
that one. Why did we not look into chips before this?
Because the website's confusing.
It's true. It is very confusing. Ooh, okay. That changes things for me. That is interesting. Lots to think about now.
Yeah.
Because I don't even know if I were going to replace Charles Leclerc. I don't know who I would even replace him with. I don't know. I'll think about it. But yeah, very interesting. Okay. Good to know for next time that I
Yes.
need to apply some chips.
Apply some chips. Exactly. Get more points.
For
Beat
sure.
quackers.
I want that championship ring.
I just want Esteban to not be crashed into by a teammate again.
Honestly, I want that too.
That's
And
ideal.
there was a picture of the two of them, like their cars just sitting there behind each other, like wrecked in the wall, that was circling around Twitter afterwards. And I was like, maybe that's why people were concerned about them being teammates. But I think we can all rejoice in the fact that that was the last time this season we will see the Pepto Bismol pink
Thank
Alpine liveries.
God.
They're going back to the blue for the
Thank
rest of the
God.
year. Those things are bad.
There's so many shades of pink that would have been a better choice than that one. And they
So many. But they just
still
went
chose
with
it.
the most offensive one.
They really said upset stomach. You'll get it by us crashing into each other. They cursed themselves with that color.
Uh, yeah, we can look. I honestly, I really like the blue because those are the ones that we saw at the beginning of the
Yeah.
year, and I like those.
Yeah.
So it'll be nice to have that back. Because it's so funny because every time there's like a team in F1 that does some sort of pink, it's always like that shade of pink. I'm like,
Yeah.
y'all know other shades exist, right? Like the one I'm wearing now, that's nice.
Yeah, that would be much better.
Yeah. Wouldn't make me think about having an upset stomach.
Unless you're sponsored by Pepto Bismol, don't choose that color.
Yeah, there's no reason. Not every shade of every color is a winner.
Exactly.
I think we may have did it.
We did it.
We did it. All right.
Hooray.
Before I start singing Dora the
Dora.
Explorer.
I mean, the
Hey,
color.
she wears a pink shirt
yeah,
too.
I was gonna say it's pretty much the color of your shirt. It's the same.
So final thoughts.
I would like if my favorite racer would stop being crashed into by his own teammate. That's it.
That
That's
is like
my
the
only
biggest
thought.
move in the entire world, honestly. Across all the motorsports, you're like, God damn it.
Let's maybe not do that anymore. That would be
Yes.
ideal.
And that's like the one rule in racing.
Yeah.
Is don't take out your teammate.
Exactly. It's like if it's another person, a different team, like I get it. It happens. It's not great, but it's going to happen. But when it's your own teammate, it really kicks in the bitter feeling.
It really does, especially because Esteban, he couldn't go anywhere, couldn't do anything.
Right.
He was just there, and Gasly rejoining, he just came in too far, and you're just like, oh great, cool, this is happening to me now.
Yep. Great. It's fine.
It's
fine.
not even because it's like he was literally just along for the ride. It's not like they were battling or anything.
No.
Like it just happened.
Yep.
And that is the ones like that kicks you in the feels.
Yep. Just in the wrong place at the wrong time. After
Yeah.
being in a decently right place for a right amount of time.
Oh yeah.
Oh well.
They were having like the best weekend they've had in a while for both their cars.
Yeah.
Both running in the points.
It's fine.
Now that I made that face, YouTube's gonna try to make that the thumbnail for this video. Because it does that to me every time. It'll pick like the most random face that I made. Like, why are you doing this? And I always have to like go back and manually be like, no,
no, not that one.
But yeah, lots going on. Lots for the F1 to figure out in the FA to kind of get their heads out of their butts in that respect.
Yep.
We learned some very valuable fantasy things, which they need to make their website easier to use.
That's the main thing we learned.
It's true. Although, if they struggle this much with rules in their own sport, I don't know how big the chances are of them making their website more user friendly.
Yeah.
We can hope.
We can hope. Maybe one day.
Yeah, it's like slightly less confusing on the app, but it's still like 14 steps.
Yeah. Too many. It should be one. That should be the easiest thing to find.
They need, where they run into trouble is they don't have a dedicated, it's not like a dedicated app for fantasy. It's like their regular app and there's like tabs.
Yes.
Just like their website. They need to have a dedicated website.
Yep.
And app for this one thing.
Yep.
That's what they do for fantasy football and all the other. Oh my god! Ow. Oh god! Excuse me. And all the other fantasy sports, it's just like one thing. Yeah. So, fingers crossed for that.
Fingers crossed. Don't hold your breath.
I mean, I'm not. Which is why I cross my fingers. But yeah, I think that's gonna wrap it up. We probably won't cover F1 obviously because the next race isn't for like a month or something. Yeah. So there's gonna be a little lull in that, but there will be other things going on.
Yep.
So yeah. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for watching, and we will see you next time. Bye guys.
Bye.